Svagatam abuso. Welcome, friends. So today in the Summer Pali Reading Group, we're going to take a look at some Pali from the canon, from the Itivuttaka. And if you've seen the episodes on the super simple introduction to nouns and verbs, and then we had one on just some basic sentence formation, this continues on from that. And we really don't need a lot of other information than what we've acquired from those videos. The other information we'll talk about, or the other kind of knowledge, quote unquote, that we need, we'll talk about as it arises. So I have the whole passage here. It's grayed out because I want to start in a particular spot, and we're going to kind of work forward and then backwards. And that's just because this is I think, just the simplest part of the passage. It'll make sense. So we're going to start with this noun here. And I should say a sub-theme of this episode is compounds. So we start with this noun, naruttamā. Now this is really a compound of the word naro, or it would be nara, in this case, or just the base nara, and uttamā. And in these cases, they're both in the masculine nominative plural. So one thing about compounds is they're going to put two words together. If there's however many words there are, the last word in the compound the last word retains the case ending. The others will not. They'll keep like the stem form. And there's also this, the thing that can kind of make this a little tricky sometimes. It's not like Sanskrit, but you have to get used to the fact that like these short A's they typically disappear. They get supplanted by other vowels sometimes. So we get naruttamā for nara uttamā. And it just means people, right? Literally naro is a man, in the plural men. It's related to the Greek word aner, which gives us like a word. It gives us the word we find in like androgyny for a man or male. But in the plural, it just means people. So the best people, the highest people, the utmost people. And so again, this is a nominative plural, the first case plural. And since this is our subject, we're going to be looking for a verb that is also in the plural. That would be third person plural. And we get that right here. We get this verb nibbāpenti. Nibbāpenti is related to the noun nibbāna. And this word, this verb, means to blow out or to extinguish. Again, it's third person plural, and that's exactly what we would expect. So if we put these together, we have naruttamā, the best people, nibbāpenti, extinguish or blow out. Now notice in English we have to put this in a different order. When we translate, we are going to have to put this in an English order, which isn't to say that you couldn't sometimes change the order a little bit to get a poetic flair, but we're just going to put it in a normal English kind of prose order. So when you think about in English, if we blow something out, we typically blow out like a flame or a candle. And actually, that's what is being talked about here. So we're on the lookout really for an object, I guess is what I should say. And we have that object here. And it's another compound. We have this dosa. I should say it's dosa and aggiṃ put together. As I was saying before, if you've only read or if you've only watched the videos in the Summer Pali Reading Group series so far, we haven't talked about all the noun families or all the classes of nouns. There are nouns that don't end in an they end in an I, this I here. But their accusative case, their second case, is formed very similar to what we've already noted. So this, aggiṃ, is the object. And this word means fire. If you're familiar with some Hindu stories, maybe mythology, you'll know that the god of fire is Agni. So this would be the Sanskrit word here, if that helps you remember. So we have this aggiṃ, a fire. They extinguish a fire. And it's not just a fire, it's a dosaggiṃ. It's a hatred fire. Now, when these two ahs come together, you might expect actually that we would get this, but it's pretty rare for Pali to have a long vowel followed by two consonants. You really don't see that much, so we keep this short ah here. Now, this type of compound is a little different from the naruttamā type. This is a kamadarya, and this is a tapurisa. We don't need to know those words if that scares you, not scared you, but I know when I first encountered those, it's like, it seemed burdensome to try to learn all of that. But what we can think about here is we could say, the best people, and that makes sense. We can say hatred fire, and we can get the meaning, but really the idea here is if we were to take these apart, you would actually end up with something like dosassa, aggiṃ. And you probably recognize by now that this is genitive. So we would, in other words, what we're saying is, or what we're seeing is that the best people extinguish or blow out the fire of hatred. That would be the way to kind of put it in English, or again, if you had to break it apart in Pali to explain it, this is how we would do it. That's not what is written here. In the compound, it makes it simpler, just dosaggiṃ. But that's the actual meaning here. And then, how do they do that? How do they achieve that? Mettāya. Now, mettāya this is from the word metta, which we probably all know. And again, there's a whole family of nouns that end in this long A, this ah. Their second case, the accusative, would look like that. And that would look very similar to the accusative cases we've seen in the stems, like for buddhaṃ. But in the other cases, and we're talking about singular here, I should say, that we're talking about the singular situation, they're almost all mettāya. They have this ending, except in the locative, sometimes there will be an at the end, ayam. We don't have that. So it's not locative, or it could be locative. We don't know. But the thing is, the context sort of makes it clear, I think. These people extinguish a flame, and how do they do that? How are they extinguishing this flame of hatred? Mettāya. I would say in English it would be pretty common or pretty natural to say with metta, with loving kindness. So this would be instrumental. If you wanted to argue some other point, it wouldn't be impossible, but I would say that to me, seems most likely that this would be instrumental. There's a little word here that if we were going to translate it, we would really want to put first, pana. You're going to see that a lot in Pali prose, especially of the suttas, maybe not so much in like the Silva and Pali primers like that. you will in water, etc. Now, pana really means something like moreover. It's connecting this to what came before. It's not typically translated. I mean, there are cases when you would want to, but it's one of these things that Pali uses it. Do we really use that in English? Not a lot. There are probably people who argue with me on that point. It could be well, like I said, there are going to be times when you'll feel that it does need to be translated. Here, I'm not so sure. And something that I'll just mention, by the way, this comma should also be visible. This is poetry, so there's a meter, meaning that there's a certain number of syllables needed in each of these gattas, these little clauses here. Pana, perhaps it just fulfills that role. And I'll go ahead and just make more visible this next section. Now, one thing, if we look at this, and this is something that's good about paying attention to the cases, the forms of words, we can see that while the words are different, the endings here aren't. Like, in other words, this word, even if we don't know what it is, mohaggiṃ, it looks just like dosaggiṃ. So it's probably an object. Pana is the same, so I won't talk about that anymore, I promise. And then paññāya looks like it's in the same form as mettāya. And as a matter of fact, paññāya it's this paññā. We probably know that as prajna in Sanskrit, like Prajnaparamita Sutra. Paññā, excuse me. And again, it's probably going to be the exact same form. And what we're required to supply or to understand is that this verb here and this noun or this subject, not only is this a direct object of this verb, but so is this. So the best people extinguish the flame of hatred with or by means of practicing loving kindness. And here we might want to include it. And moreover, or just and, they extinguish the flame of moha, of delusion, by means of wisdom. And this is, again, when we talk about, is it poetic if we don't repeat the verb, they extinguish this, they extinguish the fire of hatred, the fire of delusion. In English, we might need it, but again, dear listener, this is up to you. And again, I shouldn't say again because I didn't say it yet. We're not actually making a formal translation. We're looking at how these things fit together. We're doing it by means of English, but we are examining the Pali. So all of the English is to help us understand this text in front of us. Now we're going to look at this last little section here. Yāyaṃ nibbāpenti. Yāyaṃ is, if you follow these videos, we haven't talked about it, but this is what's known technically as a relative pronoun. It is referring back to paññā. So by means of wisdom, and this is a locative form of the relative pronoun, and it means in which, and then we have to understand some kind of form of the verb to be, or we'll talk about that in a minute. There might be even a better one. In which, gamini. Now this is a word that kind of comes up, this is a word that comes up, say, in the Fourth Noble Truth, dukkha nirodha gamini patipada, a path leading to the cessation of dukkha. Here can mean leading to, in which there is a leading to, or maybe we could understand a path, or a going to. It's this gum is the root of the very famous verb gacchati, like buddhaṃ saranam gacchami. I go to the Buddha as a refuge, my refuge. So this is a going to wisdom, by means of wisdom, in which there is a going to nibbāpenti, penetration or insight. Okay, so that's a lot, but now we're going to back up and look at this first section. And I just wanted to I wanted to include it because then we get these three, we get raga, dosa, and moha. I'll try to make this a different, we'll make them like kind of red, because they are the three fires. They are these three unwholesome roots. So again, we're going to look at a relative pronoun. We're going to start and take this one in order. Ye cha rattindivā yuttā. And this ye just means those who. The cha we've probably talked about. It just comes after. It's and. So this would connect to even what came before. So we're not, we don't have that before us right now, so the and might not make a lot of sense. Those who, and then this word yuttā means connected to or connected with, rattindivā. We'll see this. This is a compound. It just means night, day, and it's an adverbial usage. So we might say day and night. I don't know. You let me know what the best order is. Day and night, those who are connected with. And then we've got this sort of really long compound, but it's not that long of a compound. Sammāsambuddhasāsane. Let me say it like this. Sammāsambuddhasāsane. So it really kind of breaks apart like this. These two we find very often, sammāsambuddha, completely enlightened Buddha. But the primary part of the compound is here, the sāsane. This is a locative form of sāsana or sāsano. Actually, I don't know if it's neuter or not. But this is locative, connected with the teaching. And then again, this is a compound like dosaggiṃ, it's a tapurisa, the teaching of the completely enlightened one. So those who are connected with the teaching of the completely enlightened one day and night, then we get this te, which it means they, and it's almost the same word. They, we've already come across this verb here, nibbāpenti. They extinguish the flame of passion, of raga. Niccaṃ, constantly. So this is, we often find this in Buddhism as aniccaṃ, impermanence. Here, this is more of an adverb, constantly. And then this is another noun form, either ending in I or in IN. I'm not sure how it's always listed, but it's sometimes seen as, certainly in the Pali English dictionary, as like a saññino would be the singular, and this INO is the plural. So they extinguish the fire of passion, they who are, and then this is connected with the word saññā, perception. Those who are perceptive of a subha. We would say the non-beautiful. And typically this is taken to mean those who kind of are perceptive of how the body actually has some non-beautiful aspects, or almost any aspect of the body. I think Lily de Silva makes this point that, and I'll put a link to that. I can't exactly remember the name of the paper, but it's about the self-made prison of the 5 aggregates. She says, someone's hair might be beautiful, but if you find that hair in your food, it's not beautiful, and so on and so forth. So that's what this is kind of about here, is if we're trying to control this, if we're trying to extinguish this fire of passion, lust maybe, we have to, or the Buddha's method is, we have to sort of meditate or be perceptive of this asubha. This really is this is a negating particle, or not particle, or prefix, and subha would mean beautiful, asubha, not beautiful. So, dear listeners, viewers, I hope that wasn't too painful, and that it doesn't turn anyone off of Pali or joining in the summer Pali reading group fun. But you can tell me if you think that that's helpful or not. And with that, I bid you peace.